And welcome back to V-Road, CCTCG's weekly Vanguard Podcast. I'm Cole.
I'm Trey.
And I'm Jared, joining you today.
Yep, for the second time now. And today, I kind of wanted to be a little topical, stay on top of some like crazy stuff that's going on in other card games, but can easily apply to this one. And that's all the crazy stuff going on in our classic, one of the big three, Yu-Gi-Oh! And what's going on with them right now is they've got one like very long-running European player. I don't want to butcher their name because I don't remember it, so I'll leave it at that. It's a European player, and they've been in it for a very long time, but they made a video recently about how they are just not going to compete for a while. And they break it down into a lot of aspects. The big ones that I wanted to cover today were the fact that their like power creep has gotten so high. I don't know how much time we'll spend on that really, but I guess we can try to find some parallels there. All the power creep, and then also the way their tournaments are structured as for like the prizing. And their main thing is like if you get like top 8 at Worlds, you walk away with like a playmat and a handshake, and that's it. Like that's all you leave with. Like you spend so much money on your deck and trying to travel to wherever Worlds is at and all that just to not be taken seriously by the company that makes your cards that you play with. So how do we feel about like that angle?
It could be a little tough to not get the appreciation you deserve, especially for winning some major tournaments. I know obviously smaller tournaments you shouldn't get the same recognition, so kind of locals or smaller card shop tournaments, it makes sense to keep the prizing kind of small, but still get acknowledged for your effort and your time. But to hear about Yu-Gi-Oh! Struggle through it all is kind of tough, because it feels like a company that has been so good about keeping the game fair for the most part until some releases, feels like they should be able to do a little more with it.
Yeah, like I feel like once you hit like the world stage, and even not at the world but like regional, like country-wide stages, you are televised a lot of the time. I don't know if Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the same level of like streaming of their games that like I know Vanguard and Magic both have. And if you are a televised person who has put this much time and effort to be good at something, it feels so bad to put this much time and just get nothing out of it because you weren't the best of the best. You weren't the second best. Like, if you compare it to like even sports, you get something for at least, like a paycheck. You don't get anything near that for even hitting top 8 in Worlds in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, this idea, this is something I wanted to talk about because it came to me while I was listening to Team APS's podcast, The Pot of Greed, and they were talking about how like the what you get from a game like that, it doesn't justify at all how the current best deck in the format costs about $2,000 to make. The cards you need to buy add up to about like $2,000, and that's like, that aside, I think that would be a lot easier to justify if you were making at least some of that money back somehow. But from what I can glean from what I hear and what I see, is the best you get is like, unironically, there are tournaments where first place, the only meaningful like thing you get is a Nintendo Switch. I know that the game has always had this thing against winning money, and that has to do with like, there's no real like solid reason why. There's been a couple reasons. The two big ones is one of the companies involved with the game just straight up doesn't allow that, and the other one was Kazuki Takahashi, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, like went out of his way to say that he never wanted the game to like be played for money, to be like approached in that way and stuff. But you know, obviously it's not working out for him.
Yeah, I mean, prizing, it can be tough. I mean, it's like you hear about these people, these kind of horror stories of people winning things on game shows, and they can't pay the taxes on whatever it was. Like they got a brand new car and you can't pay the taxes on it. So I'm sure there is so many background things that make it tough for prize money to actually be worthwhile handing out. And in reality, like it's sad to say, because there is a lot of money in our game, but there's not enough major sponsors that really put the money into it. So either it's going to have to all come out of like the main company. So Bushi in our case, Konami and Yu-Gi-Oh's case, like they're going to have to be putting all that money in. And when they don't feel that that's okay, and there's already a lot that has to go around it outside of it, just between, you know, local governments and things like that, I can understand why money isn't on the table.
Maybe because I come from Magic the Gathering as my background, and I've just always heard the like tournament and pro scene up to a certain level has always been for the money pot. That I don't know those specific laws of everywhere in the world. Big shocker. But I don't know how hard it would be to just declare it, you know, declare it on your taxes or whatever financial system you have in your country, to just add that to revenue.
I know that they do for certain regionals, they have like discounted hotel blocks for like the venue they're at, and that's cool. And like this isn't to like dog on Konami at all, or like whoever organizes their events or anything like that's not what I'm trying to do here. I just thought it was an interesting thing to piggyback off of and sort of see how all these other card games are running their events and like comparing them, especially because I think right now Vanguard actually does their pricing pretty well, all things considered. Like, okay, let's get the obvious one out of the way first. Okay, at a local level, promos and what they've ended up becoming as far as standard goes, ever since like standard has started, like, yes, they're all very expensive depending on what deck they're for or how often they're in circulation or whatever, and they're always like annoying that like you need to get them for these decks if it's super pivotal to keep it relevant in the meta or whatever. And like those are all like super valid things, but it is always, to me, I think it's a perfectly fine like necessary evil in that it makes sure it really does incentivize people to play. Like it, like, you know, we had a locals a couple days ago where, you know, like our store owner hadn't even gotten the promos in yet or something was going on with that, so we just didn't, you know, feel like it was worth it to put in our like entry fee, and we just played casually. And like there's nothing wrong with that every once in a while, but it says something about like the power of these promos and how we know that there's something exciting about participating in a tournament even if you don't win it.
Yeah, I mean, having something to kind of fight for in a sense, you know, adds that little bit more of competitive prowess. Makes you want to be competitive. It, you know, it makes you want to fight. And yes, our game is so fun to play casually as well. You know, just trying different things, learning different mechanics, trying different decks. But when it comes time to tournament, sometimes it's nice to, even if you're running not like your main tournament deck, to run a deck and you try to run it as competitive as you can. You do all the little sweaty, you know, try hard things with the deck to make it as good as it can be. And that's a whole another aspect of fun. So, you know, missing out on some of those prizings can hurt. You know, like you said, this last week we had missed out on our tournament. So missing out on those pivotal pieces where sometimes those cards can cost like $20 a piece. I know that's on the secondhand market, but also still just receiving those things, gives you that nice sense of value.
Yeah, I really like that playing in tournaments because I love the competitive nature of games. I like trying to prove how good I am. And it doesn't feel like I'm like trying that hard when I'm just like throwing back like cards with friends at the table, which is always fun. I really like doing that. But sometimes sweating is really nice. And to know that I'm going to be compensated for trying, getting better, reiterating, do all that, it feels way more rewarding to show up, pay my entry fee, and even take like 8th place.
Yeah, that's fair. So from like that local level, these promos are important, even if like they're not super relevant to your deck. It's always nice to see who needs them or how you can like trade them around or what have you. But then I think what makes me the happiest to talk about this currently is what the pricing is like now, as far as like the regional and worlds levels go. And what I'm like specifically referring to, I guess, is how I believe it was Worlds this year. I think so. I think it was Worlds this year for 2023, not 2024. That you had like a participation pack that had like a borderless, or not a borderless, but but it didn't have like a text box around it of like Spiral Cutie Angel and like Crystal Luster Dragon. Like that is so crazy that you can like show up and just open one of those just for participating. Like that's so cool. And how there were like tournaments in Japan this year who had like the Now and I believe it was like the Masanori, the energy generators, like, and those go for like so much money. Like the Now one can like pay for your rent of your like your apartment or whatever. Like there's so much, and that's cool. I think that's really cool, and it's something that like we haven't really had in Vanguard before. Like I've got like these energy markers on the screen right now, and they're all just like anime characters on them that you can only get in like certain local tournaments like Vanguard Day and the Constructed Cups and stuff. And there's like the ones with the nation symbol on them, those are from side events at like upcoming tournaments and stuff for regionals. And like that's so cool. Like I believe we had like cosmetically different imaginary gifts in V, if I remember correctly. We probably did, but we haven't had something like that until now, where you can like customize what your energy looks like, and you have like these cool energy like generators that look so different and are like textured. I think they're like SP too. Like that is just that makes me want to go to these tournaments when I usually wouldn't have. And I've been in the game for a while.
Yeah, having that something that you're already going to get for even just showing up, as that little bit of a, hey, here's what's to come type thing. As long as you play well, here's what our base level is of just showing up. Then there's that. Like I know, for 2024, 2025, there's 38 cards that you could potentially pull from the promo pack, which is kind of nice. So it adds a little bit of diversity. It, gives a little bit of that gacha chance that we all love so much with pulling packs. And then there's obviously more rewards the higher and higher you place. So giving that competitive edge to, make sure you show up and play your best to try to earn these different rewards, and, the respect of your fellow players, everything that comes with being competitive.
Yeah, I think there's something to say about how like this game doesn't offer money for its rising in most regards. I know there are some that aren't like ran by Bushiroad, but are like pretty big deals that do offer money to like first place and stuff like that, to like top 4 or so, I believe. But it's nice that like this game doesn't need to. It rings very similar to like the Bandai card games like Digimon and One Piece. Like their prize cards go for so much, and like, especially when you talk about One Piece, like there are so many cards that are just there. I believe there was a card mentioned that was given to second place that sold for $91,000. And like,
Lordy.
the idea of that, I don't think we'll ever get in Vanguard, because like Vanguard isn't One Piece. Like, I'm not gonna pretend it ever will be, but the idea that there are like those energy cards with the nations on them, I bet those are gonna go for a insignificant amount of money, especially if you want like 10 of them to fill out like your energy. That's gonna cost a lot of money, and it's for the people that like to max priority out their decks. It's just another way to like express themselves as a player, while at the same time justifying like travel costs and stuff for the person who ended up like being able to get it. And I think that's like super important to keep the competitive scene of a card game going.
Yeah, so we saw this a little bit in Magic, where they redid the whole structure of how pricing and stuff happened, and essentially it would made it so players got less for what they were doing, and it made it more confusing on how to participate, how to get your rewards, and all that. And it almost killed off the competitive Magic scene, and you know, that drive to want to play the game more competitively for a while. And then WotC, who creates the game, Magic the Gathering, rolled it back into a more streamlined, you know, participate locally, regional, bigger tournament world, you know. And once you hit that, like, having to move out of, like, what would be, like, your region, like, the Midwest, the Northeastern, they start having, like, almost guaranteed compensation for you of, I believe, Pro Tours compensate every player with at least $1,000, which is great to actually say, I know that if I go out there, I am not bankrupting myself to, to pay for a hotel and a plane ticket. Because...
Are you talking about when they had people like try to qualify through Magic Arena or whatever?
So you can still do that, and there are online qualifiers for Magic Arena. They're just weird, and I'm not too sure on it. I don't know the structures of those tournaments. I haven't participated in one, so I can't talk on the validity of those specifically. I know they're still around, though.
Gotcha.
But, like, Magic the Gathering Online has them, and they have qualifiers for that. And you get like points that lead to the can I participate in the biggest tournament. But if I was a like competitive grinder, I would feel so much nicer knowing I can, you know, go from, you know, the US to Canada, pay for my ticket and hotel, and know I'm at least paying for that.
Yeah, it gives you a nice budget to kind of say, okay, well, it's going to at least offset everything I'm spending here. So everything after that is just, you know, money. It's extra. It's gold. It's the cherry on the top type thing. So gives you that more incentive to actually show up and not stress about the financial aspect of if you go out early type thing. Like, you know, the longer you stay, the better, obviously. But, you know, if it happens to where you don't make it as far in the tournament as you'd like, you feel a little less bad about it.
Yeah, it's there's a side of it that's always like kind of annoying to have to bring up every time this topic comes around, but it's so weird to think about how like running tournaments like those are always like a net loss on the company that's like setting them up and running them for people. It's weird. Like, they have to print these special pieces of cardboard that people get, and they can only get there, and are worth money on the secondary market, that can like help justify to them like getting to where they need to be to play, just to like play there. But it's worth the loss usually, I imagine, to the company, because it puts so many eyes on the tournament itself, and the fact that like this game can be played at like a very competitive level, whether it's like put in a super competitive lens or not. It always does something to people who like like fighting games, for example, it's always cool to be like, oh, I'm playing this fighting game and I'm learning how to do stuff with my character or whatever, but like seeing like a tournament match of like a really cool, like a name of a player you see all the time doing really well with a deck with like a character they like that's always the thing that can motivate a lot of people to like grind it out and eventually like make it to a tournament like that. And I think that's equally true here. Like, you've heard names like WC Kai and Derek Dow and, you know, like those kind of people who like show up so consistently, and that like that by itself, the fact that people should like the same names show up a lot tells you that this game like is worth playing competitively, as much as like, I don't know, people could disagree with standard at least, and maybe premium to the fact that like the over trigger can make it a way less competitive game. But I don't know, I think it's set up well enough that it's more than worth trying to play for crazy stuff like this.
Yeah. And I really, the one like unfortunate part of monetizing it specifically with dollar bills is, man, does it bring out the worst in people. There are some people who just cannot look at, you know, you do a match, you'll lose it, GG, you know, move on, be a halfway decent human. There are people who will like look at it as like a slight against them. And I really wish that wasn't a part of card gaming as a whole. That the moment you put a prize on the table, gotta sweat, gotta lose my human decency.
I mean, unfortunately, that's just kind of human nature. Like, I wish I could say it's localized to the card gaming industry, which I don't even wish I could say that. But it's really just unfortunate that humans can be greedy, and that's just part of it. So another reason why there's probably less monetization in our game and in Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, yes, there are already scandals. We had one 3 months ago where a guy got caught cheating after a major Vanguard tournament. And Bushy unfortunately kind of said, well, there's nothing we could do about it. We didn't catch him in the tournament, couldn't disqualify him. There was no like retroactive banning or, you know, anything like that with it. So, you know, obviously we don't want those people in our arena. We don't want those people in our game. But, you know, that's one way to kind of stop people from cheating. Like, yes, it's great to have the top 8 rewards and the top 4 rewards and winning and getting all that stuff, but also it's not money, so people are less likely to cheat. At least I would think so. I can't understand that mindset, but
which I always find it to be a weird perception of like those like really high level card rewards where, let's be honest, most people are selling them off so that they can participate, fund their next tournament, do that. I don't see how a lot of the time that isn't just seen as like a $300 bill that to a lot of people. I maybe because I like understand things cost money, and you know people like the pimpage. So
yeah, to Bushiroad's credit, I know that after about a week of pretty heavy backlash, they did actually retroactively ban that guy.
I missed that part.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was easy to miss. I think that it was such a bigger deal that somebody was trying to cheat in that way to begin with. But yeah, no, they did. They saved it at the end. It still wasn't a good look for them to like not do it originally, but different episode, different topic. Yeah, I think while I can see like what Magic and like especially Pokemon does with the amount of money they offer to like their top 8 or their top 4, like they'll offer like $10,000 to they'll go like $10,000 to first, like 5,000 to second, 4,000 to third, and like so on and so forth, and they'll give them like a bunch of packs and stuff, and like that's cool, but I would rather play for a card or cards that I know that there are people in this game who buy stuff like that. This game isn't small enough to where those people just don't exist. I personally think that I've always seen people who really covet items like that, because for like a collection purposes, like history, like, you know, what it is or whatever. But outside of that, well, whether you can sell some cards or not, I do maybe I'm in the minority on this one, but maybe not. I do think there is some value in just playing for a promo that you have like a bit of an attachment to. Like, if I were to get, let's say, like the Brantgate Energy card, I don't know if I would ever get rid of that. And depending on how I got it, it would have like a lot of memories to me. And I think that's the big thing, that these promos can have a lot of memories in them of like the event themselves. And while I think what's good to me is that there's so many now. There used to be not nearly this many. And why having so many is good is because there's a higher chance that the ones you get aren't ones that maybe they're not worth a ton, or, you know, you'll personally use most of the time. So like keeping them, you don't ever feel bad about it. Then you look at it later and you're like, oh yeah, I got it from this event and it felt good to open it or whatever.
Yeah, I have a card in my binder that's from a BCS tournament that I won, and it's not a very good card. Like it was a bad promo that came out for standard, and
what was it?
I don't
You
look at the
don't
card
remember?
name. I don't remember the card name. It's a Dragon Empire grade 1. It's really bad. But it was a BCS card and it has a little nice little hot stamp on it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay, yeah.
It's not a good card. It could get thrown in a deck. Like
I don't remember it either, so don't worry.
And like Vrygilla or Grayandra or something, you know, kind of goofy, fun. But it's really just a binder piece, and it's kind of nice. Like every time I see it, when I open up my binder and I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a fun tournament. Like I remember it was like the first big tournament I run with Overlord in standard, and I obviously took the game, and it was good fun. So, you know, it's nice to kind of have that memory piece. You know, even though it's not an expensive card by any stretch of the means, it's not a good card by any stretch of the means, but it's a fun just little trophy in a sense.
Yeah, and like on smaller scale tournaments, like even up until like your region, like couple hour drive, so on, I'm like completely fine with you not getting like a big cash payout for, you know, getting high place in the tournament. Card promos are really cool and fine for that, and I would be, you know, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say I have one of those in my binder for when I like was young and played. I was like just getting into Magic, played in my first tournament, got that guy at got a Brimaz. The Magic players in the chat, I got a Brimaz, and it was the coolest card, and I will never trade that card away because it was the first time I competed in a tournament.
Yeah. What is it? Last year, I won my shop challenge with, I think it was Orphis Mask or something. I think it was Orphis Mask, and I still have it. I have the buy card I won from that shop challenge that, like, obviously I can't use now because like BCS 2023 is already over. But, you know, like having that there, it's like it was like cool. It was like probably the most I've sweated in my life for this game. And it was like, of course, like, you know, it happened to happen around the time that like my favorite card in the game became like tier 1 again, and like that was cool. But it was still just nice to push him hard as I could and like not brick much with him that week, and then, you know, like get that little card that's got like my name on it and is signed by like the store owner. I think that's cool. Like, so even if it's just like a buy card, I think having that stuff is like super important for the game to like keep you invested in a way that's not even necessarily like monetarily, you know? Yeah.
Well, and it comes down to the fact that we, for a living, pretty much, not necessarily a living, but for a long time out of our lives, we've collected these little cardboard cards. So having rewards that are just saying, hey, this is a card, it's really nice, here you go, you won it, that's your trophy, instead of having like, you know, actual hardware. I think, like, you know, growing up playing sports, it's nice to have those trophies, but I don't have, you know, my T-ball trophy sitting on a shelf here. Like, I know that card's going to stay in my binder, it's going to be there every time I open it, so it's nice to have. I can carry it around, it's convenient. Whereas, you know, some big trophies are sometimes inconvenient. They're nice eye pieces, but sometimes different. So
Yeah,
nice
it feels really weird that I like you talking about like your trophies you have from like when you were a kid. I have a placard from wrestling at statewide, and I have a second place placard on my wall. I don't care that much about that thing anymore. But that piece of cardboard that I worked hard as, that sits in my binder to show off to people, I do not understand why. That makes me so much more happy to show off.
Oh yeah, yeah, I get that. It's no different than like back when I was playing V a lot, and me and some buddies went down to Illinois. I don't remember what state it was. We went south somewhere, and or whatever direction, and we met up to open a case of Phantasmal Steed Restoration, and I was getting all the Shadow Paladin stuff because I wanted to play Mordred. And
oh yeah,
I know that like you could open either an XVR Mordred, a Force Marker, an XVR Mordred himself, or what I wanted the most, which is an XVR Blaster Dark. And my buddy pulled it out of our case, and he just threw it right in front of me, and I absolutely lost it. Like, I popped out so hard that card never went out of my deck until Standard stopped being a thing. Like, I still have that card. I will never get rid of that card. Like, of course, it used to be worth a lot of money. Now, not so much. Still, like, it's still something, but it's not nearly anything as it used to be. But that didn't matter to me for the same reason that, like, a promo card I'd get at a tournament wouldn't matter to me, the monetary value, if it, like, really resonated with, like, me as a card game player. So that'll always be why I appreciate like where Vanguard is now and how much they're offering to like show how they appreciate the players of the game. And it's why it kind of breaks my heart to hear that like the pricing in such a big card game like Yu-Gi-Oh is so bad. Like their prize cards are made for those events, which is cool, but they're all like a vanilla cards with no effects, and they just look cool, and the art is like exclusive, and that's like fine. But I wish the same thing for Yu-Gi-Oh as the players do. They need to make like a staple or a currently used card that is just like an alternate rarity or has a different foiling or like a stamp. Like, why is that? I don't understand how that's not something
they just need to hot stamp Pot of Greed and let everyone run it, and it'd be fine.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, like I know that like Yu-Gi-Oh to like the outside world is like the dead horse we beat to make fun of as like a card game, but I don't want Yu-Gi-Oh players to actually like have a bad time. I want them to enjoy their game as much as I'll make the jokes of like, oh, this in Yu-Gi-Oh and like turn one format. I still want them to have fun playing their game. I want them to feel like they get something special when they win a tournament. And I love when promos, if they're gonna do cards, do it as cool alt arts of things that are ran. I do not like it when they some card games have print like new unique cards into their tournament pools, and that's just gross. Where it's you participate in that tournament so you can play more things in the tournament.
No, it sucks because it's not even like a new card that you can only get from that tournament. Yeah. It's like a card that literally says you cannot use this in a duel. No, it says that you cannot use this in a duel. It straight up says that on a card. Like, this card cannot be played. And then it also has like silly shit on it that they can only print on a card. Like, it's like, if this card deals battle damage to your opponent, you win the match. Like, it'll say. Oh my god! I know, right? It's so weird. Like,
how hard is it for someone at like Konami go? A lot of people are running Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring.
I know.
There's a new art of that.
They've made alt arts of it. Let's
give it out to people for playing in our tournaments. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I, a non-Yu-Gi-Oh player, know about Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring.
Yeah, like,
So that's...
meanwhile, we have like I think it was earlier this year, you could get like a Petrolka, a promo lyrical boss who has no targeted support minus like 3 cards, and nobody plays it. This card as a besides me, this card as a tournament promo is not worth anything. It is just a common version of Petrolka with a BSF 2023 hot stamp on it that I picked up for like $1 on the secondary market or whatever. Like, that did not need to exist, but it's so cute that it exists, and I appreciate that it exists. You know, there's always going to be that random stuff that they just did not need to print, but here it is, and it somehow it makes all the difference.
I really love the hot stamping that Vanguard does. It makes like certain cards feel very special. With them, I can almost guarantee minimal effort on the printing end.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have to commission a new piece of art. It's the same piece of art, but they just had to put their stamp for 2018 Worlds, 2019 Worlds on it.
Yeah.
All right, we will have a small... I'm not dogging on Yu-Gi-Oh, but that does kind of make me want to air out a different grievance. The fact that in packs, there's no alternate rarity or art for any cards they do at all.
Yeah.
That's so, like, that the cards would not be as expensive as they are if there was any way to, like, a max rarity a deck that wasn't certain cards that you could get 1 per case or 2 cases or whatever. Like, I don't understand it, man. We have it so good with like frame rares and silver rares and
rares has been a godsend.
Hollows of rares and commons and
and like
DSRs and, you know, secret
All
rares.
Yeah, like even before I started playing Vanguard, I always saw Pokemon was like one of the best for like making your deck look cool, because they always had the like common version of a card that was like a quarter that you could get from your local game store, and then they had the full art version of it that you could get that was like, depending on playability, you know, like again like $10-$20, and then they had like the rainbow version of it, and it was like that was the super special rare, but you could still get cards and play in these tournaments and stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it was like a common staple, it wasn't like it was only printed at this super high rarity.
Yep. So circling back to
our Vanguard
Yu-Gi-Oh.
podcast,
to Yu-Gi-Oh having all these issues, I will say the only good thing that's going to come from this is Konami is going to have to reformat or die. They're either going to kill their card game's competitive scene, which unfortunately will kill its card game, which I'm not hoping for at all. I think those players deserve a good atmosphere. But sometimes, you know, to build back up, you have to burn things down. So if all of these bigger name competitive players are stepping down and doing this, as long as, you know, people kind of go along with it, it's going to be one of those conform or die type things. So I think it'll be good for the players, maybe not necessarily good for Konami, but we'll see.
It's weird because same people that were informing me about how bad it is and how so far it's just been one person who's stopped. There has been like a couple maybe like smaller names, but like there's only been one like super big name who's like stepped down from playing competitively. You know, like a last thing we'll say about it, because like of course we don't want to be like too negative about anything really. That's not the kind of podcast I think I want this to be, but there has been a sentiment about how like people want it to change, and maybe this can parallel to Vanguard a little, but like people want it to change, but so far like attendances have been super high for tournaments, like more than they've ever been, and people still like keep showing up and they keep engaging with the game or whatever, so like there isn't really a need to change anything. I hope still they just try to change as a company, follow kind of Bushiroad's lead, because they definitely changed following like how they're seeing like the Bandai card games do things. And I think they've done all those changes for the better when I guess you wouldn't really need to, because there was nothing stopping people from playing this game competitively until now. But now there's so much more of a reason to than there was. It's just like a strict upgrade. Like there was no downward slope, it just kept going up. And I just want the same thing for Yu-Gi-Oh! I think we've all said that. Like, yeah, like we don't play it, we don't kind of enjoy what it's become, maybe as much as like the players themselves. But yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. Obviously, if it starts collapsing in numbers and things, if these bigger people are starting to make it a bigger deal, I mean, like in reality, if DF or Derek Dow or all these other larger name channels for Vanguard and these big competitive people, if they start saying, hey, we're not showing up to these tournaments for these reasons, I think people will start to kind of side with them and be like, yeah, you're kind of right, this isn't fair. We deserve a little bit more, not obviously asking for a golden egg or anything, but like something more to make it worthwhile when you could still just play local and still enjoy the card game. We'll have to see. It could go a million ways, but we just hope that it doesn't crash and burn.
Any closing thoughts, Drew?
I'm trying to think of some good ones.
Well, just like any lasting thoughts about this. Wrap it up,
Yeah, just I'm in a weird spot where I don't want Vanguard to be as like pushed as a very heavy quotation mark career path that a Magic the Gathering player can be. But I do want people to be properly compensated for the time and effort. And I think Bushi has laid out a much nicer path than a lot of other card games for floating that balance of you get something for showing up that is worth your time and effort versus like how unfortunately Konami has handled it.
Yeah, and only time will tell where that goes. But for now, I'll wrap it up for today. If you've watched until the end, thank you. If you liked this little discussion we had here, not too sure how kind of off the cuff we're gonna do stuff like this, but if you enjoyed it, you can like the video, or you've been enjoying what you've been seeing lately, you can subscribe. And here we'll have the playlist for the rest of V-Road on the screen, and YouTube says you should watch next on the right. But until next time, I was Cole.
I was Trey.
And I'm Jared.
And we'll see you in the next one.